In the last year, we've been going at quantum, I don't want to use speed, but we've been in a quantum accelerated energy process. We started off 1 year ago, almost to the date, 1 year ago, at the Cryon conference in Sedona. And I work closely with Cryon at times, particularly when we're sharing a stage. And I talked to the Cryon prior to that event. There was about 800-900 people there. It was a huge event, and I knew it was time to say something important to that audience, but particularly to you. I checked with the Cryon in advance, and I said, here's what I'm going to talk about, just to make sure that it was comfortable with the whole consciousness of that gathering. And I made a statement, a very strong statement, and I said, the new age is over. It is over. And that's not exactly the greatest venue, the greatest place to make that announcement. Sedona is New Age central for United States and actually for a lot of the world. It's also Macchio central. It's not my favorite place to go. But I did make that announcement. I said, the New Age is over, meaning that it's time to stop talking about it. It's time to stop exploring all the different modalities and methods, and it's time to wrap that up. Blavatsky and Jung and Steiner and a few others were so instrumental in starting the New Age 140 years ago. It was a time when the world needed new thinking and a new approach to dive into mysticism and spirituality in a way that none of the churches were providing and really none of the other religions were providing. But it came time for the New Age to close. And basically in closing to say, it's either time to go back to ordinary, regular life as a human, or it's time to come into your enlightenment. It's time to be that embodied master on earth. So that started a very fast-paced process. And I realized I wasn't invited back again this year. Then last summer, we did the Ancestral Freedom. I know many of you have listened to it or watched it. It's not a pleasant program. It's not a pleasant cloud class, I guess you call them. It's difficult. It wasn't very long, but it's very difficult because I knew it was time to let go of that final imbalanced karmic connection to old family. Many of you who went through that and experienced it had weeks or even months afterwards of challenges in the body and in relationships, sadnesses, because it was letting go of old relationships that were not really imbalanced with you anymore. It was holding you back. And it wasn't meant to say, walk out on your family or divorce your spouse or throw your children out the door into the world. It was meant to say that you've had a very long lineage with the biology and the mindset of a family that you may love, or you may hate. It doesn't really matter. But it's time to let that go. You can't drag that into enlightenment. You can love them. You can have compassion for them. But I invited all of you to look at your ancestral background. And it was difficult for many of you. And I know there were some physical issues that went in. But that was the next step that we took. Then we started the Walk On series. This is number 10 in the Walk On, and for some reason it just seems like number 3, like we just started it, because it's going fast. And we've dived into a lot of material this year. We've gone into a lot of issues in the past 9 shouds. And then it came the time for the Bond Adventure in Hawaii. The Bond Adventure was a wonderful, beautiful workshop, but what happened there was really very important. I told the group, and I believe it was the second day, I said, this is the first time as Shaumbra that we've met. It was the first time that we've met, and the overlying energy was not about issues and problems. We've had hundreds and hundreds of gatherings over the years, but generally what happened is that Shaumbra came in with their problems. And that's okay. They're silent problems. They didn't come in crying at the door. They didn't come in demanding answers to their issues, but it was there. It was like a cloud hanging over the entire gathering. I had to work with it. Tobias had to work with it also, but it was energetically in your way. The human issues, the basic ones, abundance, health, relationships, and self-worth. And some of you had really been struggling with that, particularly relationships. And that's why I felt that ancestral freedom was so important. But at that gathering was the first time it wasn't the overriding, the big issue. That was a huge breakthrough, not just for that group, but it was indicative of all Shaumbra. It was representative of all of you. And it happened again recently when we were in Italy, both Threshold and the Amio retreat. With both of them, the overriding energy wasn't problems in your life. Those human, struggling, almost unsolvable problems. Now we could really walk on. We could really make a lot of progress. It's been speeding up at literally a quantum level. It's one of the reasons why so many of you are feeling exhausted in the body. The mind thing goes back and forth, but what I really noticed here in this show today is the energy level, the physical issues. It's had an effect, this light speed on the body. It's had an effect. The good news is that it's not permanent and it's not going to keep getting worse. But I can tell that it's had an effect. So it's been a very, very fast year. A lot of things happening in this year. And when you look at what we've talked about, what we've covered this year, just stop for a moment and the magnitude of it. This year, we've taken on darkness and said that darkness is an illusion. That's in itself is enough for about 2 lifetimes worth of work. And we recently did it. Darkness is absolutely an illusion. If you believe in it, then it's going to be there and it's going to affect your life and it's going to put things into a lot of imbalance. You're always going to be afraid of or fighting the darkness. Once you rise above that illusion and realize there really isn't darkness, and particularly in your life, you can move on beyond all of those struggles. It is truly an illusion. There are people who will fight for darkness, who will insist on light and dark, on angels and devils. And let them. It's their game to play, but we moved beyond that. We're moving beyond death itself. We talked about it extensively the other day at the Amio retreat. Everybody showed up wanting the good life, and what did I do? Talk about death. But death is such an issue for humans. The belief in death. There is no death. But yet humans insist on it. They look at a body in a coffin, and they say, well, obviously Adamus is wrong. They see their friends, their relatives, their parents, their brothers and sisters dying. And they say, well, that's going to happen to me. Everybody says sooner or later you're going to die. That actually is not true. There is a transition of the physical body, and the Master understands that someday they're going to absolutely integrate, bring their physical body into their entire body of consciousness. But there's no death. There's no death. It's a transition. You are more alive than ever, particularly with the understanding of the I exist. You realize that this what has been called death, which is really a transition of the biology, and it doesn't have to be the kind of ugly death people have been experiencing, but you come to realize that you're more alive than ever when you make that transition. I told the group at Amyo the other day, so many Shambhava have said this is going to be my last lifetime on this planet. And I take that to mean the last lifetime going through the process that you've had to go through now. The last lifetime where you are birthed. The last lifetime where you forget who you were. The last lifetime where you're living in the cloud, the dark shadow, actually, of mass consciousness and all of its unpleasant things like lack of abundance, like disease, like wars and famine and all the rest of that. But I told the group the other day that you have the option or the choice to be the first that are going to be coming back if you choose without going through birthing. You can choose to integrate yourself into a printed body, a nano body. Or you just simply manifest your light body for a few days at a time. But when you've talked before about never coming back, you mean in the old way. There are new ways to come back and experience this planet without having to go through the old system to do it. There are ways to experience the beauty of the nature of this planet and good, healthy relationships on this planet without having to do it the old way. You're going to be the first that are going to be doing that. Now, the Ascended Masters came in, it was a little bit different. They went generally through the birthing process with a few kind of exceptions like Tobias with the shell body, but he still went through the human patterns to come back. If you choose, you'll be the first ones that really transcend the meaning of death. The meaning of death is that your body dies, usually of some disease or an accident, and that you come back for another lifetime, but you've forgotten who you are. You'll be the first that have the potential to really defy death because you'll come back without birth. You'll come back and know exactly who you are. You'll come back and not have the gravity of mass consciousness pull you into things that you know just aren't right, into other people's dramas, into abundance issues, into a wide variety of things. So when I've heard you, and Tobias always heard you say, never coming back, we kind of knew that you were saying, not the old way. We're going to create the new way. We're going to change the consciousness of death on this planet. And you're doing that. You're absolutely doing that. And each and every one of you will have the opportunity, has everything you need for embodied enlightenment in this lifetime and the transcendence of death, to where you can come back here however you want, whenever you want, and truly enjoy life the way it should be. So this year, we've, in our quantum consciousness opening, we've gone beyond death. We've gone beyond God. That was a tough one, because Linda was always giving me a hard time about it. How can I say that about God and Jesus? We've talked about God. And we looked, we've talked about it many other years, but this year we really said this old God just isn't going to work anymore. And we weren't afraid to say it. We didn't worry about, the lightning bolt coming in. God is a joke, a bad human joke. It's a reflection of human consciousness. It has nothing to do with the divine or spirituality. The people that have created this man God did not have a divine experience, because then you don't write lame books about it. We've taken on the churches. We've taken on religions. We've even taken on the New Age with a lot of macchio. And we said, that is not God. That is not spirit. Spirit, God, is right here. I am God also. We've said no more to some of these scary old belief systems, to karma, to sin, to penance and suffering. This is not meant to be. It's time for these things to change on this planet. And it's not going to change through lectures and books. It's going to change by a few humans like you going beyond, creating the whole new template for this planet. This past year, we took on power. Power. Most humans believe in power. They don't question power. Life is a game of power. You either have it or you don't. If you have it, you're always afraid of losing it, so you try to get more. If you don't have it, you're always wishing that you would get it, and you're afraid of the people that are powerful. Power is an illusion. It's an absolute illusion. It doesn't exist anywhere other than human consciousness and the human mind. Other than that, it doesn't exist. And we said, let's walk on. Let's go into the powerless life, because in a powered life, there's always forcing. There's a harshness. There's always fear. In a power life, it's looking outside rather than looking inside. There's no need for power. But people don't understand energy and consciousness, so they go after power instead. Power is everywhere on the planet. It's in businesses, of course. It's in religions and churches, absolutely in the government. It's in therapy. It's in the pharmaceutical industry. It's in everything. This world operates on power. Power. And it's actually interesting, because the whole dynamic with fossil fuel, old fuel, is such a reflection of this whole consciousness of power. You have to explode something to move it forward. You have to have force and dynamics. And basically, the planet isn't going to find the real energy solution as long as it believes in power. We've taken it on, and the words come from me through Caldra, but it's your consciousness that's coming through. It's your saying no more to death, no more to this belief in darkness, no more to the old God. We've changed. You've changed in one short year. We've taken on time and space. That's a big one. We've said time, space. Move through you. It's not you moving through a linear projection or through time and space. Time and space moves through you. It's such a simple physics. It's almost hard for me to imagine that the scientists and the physicists haven't gotten that. It's so simple. It's revolutionary. And when they finally get it through their human brains, it'll change the whole understanding of science and God and power and everything else. But right now, they're locked into it. But you are changing that. You are, some of you have absolutely felt it. Other of you have that knowingness that time and space are moving through you. You're the master. You're not at the mercy of time and space. Speaking of which, time in particular, history. History is a sequence of time. We've talked about, we're actually even defying history. History is basically a linear human story. These events happened on these dates, and people believe it without questioning it. Say, well, you're crazy if you don't believe what's written in these books. We're coming to understand that history is a aspect of time, and that time is flexible. You don't have to be trapped in linear time anymore, and that when you take a look at your past, at your history, that actually it's not necessarily what your mind remembered. It's not necessarily what was even written in the books. And people will challenge that and say, well, you're crazy, this is what happened. But the master comes to discover that it's very flexible, that what happened in the past can be changed, the perspective of it, and also the understanding of all the dynamics that went in. You're not locked into time. You're not locked into your history anymore. And even the other day, we took on love at the Amyo retreat. We talked in depth about love. Now, a lot of times when I hear people talk about peace, love, and joy, I want to vomit. It's a Makyo cliche, and I say that because they really don't understand what these things are. They're saying it from almost a hypnotic standpoint, peace, love, and joy. We talked in depth about love and about true, deep love, what it really is. We've taken on the biggest issues in the last year, and you've been an integral part of all these things. We've moved at this light speed, and you'll know that in the last couple of years, I've been talking almost ad nauseum until you get bored about your 5 human senses and the mind, saying that these things create the perspective of your reality. Your mind, your human senses give you the perspective of reality, but that's not all there is. Let's move forward. Let's expand that. Let's go into the master's sense, which is very, very different than any human sense and the mind. Let's begin exploring what else is already here. So in this last year, with a lot of talking about the senses and about the going beyond the mind, we've done that. We've started opening, you started opening the master's sense. It's still coming. Some of you question if it's there or if you're doing it right. It's going to come. Don't work at it, really. Don't effort with it. Just feel into it and allow it. We've done an incredible amount this year, and there's a lot more to come. A tremendous lot. Good lot to come.